Hi everyone, David Aragona and Mike Beer here taking a look at the first of the graded stakes races on Saturday at Saratoga. Race 7 is the Grade 3 Prioress, this one for the 3-year-old fillies going the 6 furlong distance, and a lot to look forward to coming up on this Labor Day weekend. Saratoga's going to be going right on through Monday. Del Mar's got action, Kentucky Downs. You want to check out your past performances, and if you need to refresh your plan, do so with this Labor Day sale. You can save up to 15% of everything in the DRF store. Just go to the shop.drf.com and use that coupon code LBD15 off when you're shopping for your handicapping products for this Labor Day weekend. Let's take a look at the field of 6 for this Grade 3 Prioress Stakes. And Mike, I think safe to say this is the weakest of the 3 graded stakes that we'll talk about, at least from a handicapping standpoint, on this Saturday card at Saratoga. You've got 6 runners entered, but clearly the 2 horses that are likely to attract the bulk of support are the number 3, Delightful Claire, a recent maiden winner, and the number 5, Long Neck Paula. They've run the fastest races, and they look like the 2 horses to beat.
Yeah, they just both landed in a really good spot here. Probably a pretty significant advantage, I would say, for Long Neck Paula, just because she has the experience edge on the horse who's her main rival. But if you're a believer in buyer speed figures, Delightful Claire is the fastest on the way in.
Let's take a look at the Timeform US pace projector for this Prioress, and kind of an interesting shape to this pace projector, Mike. You've got these 5 horses that are clumped up front and 1 detached from the field. You might look at this and say, oh, well, I want the 1 closer in the race. I don't know, flat out time, the number 1 is exactly a closer. She's just has not shown the early speed of the others. And it seems like all of the other horses, the 5 that are shown towards the front, they all want to attain forward position. So I could see this pace heating up in here. I do think the number 2, Rojo Rita, if she breaks cleanly, could be the fastest of them all, but I wonder what your take on that is.
I kind of agree with you. At least, we'll see if Rojo Rita, the recent switch over to the turf, the last 2 races on turf, we'll see if that does anything to her speed. But I always thought she was a really fast horse on dirt at the beginning of her career. So I can certainly see her bringing that speed back to the main track here. But it's not like, even if she makes the lead, Dave, it's not like she's going to be able to get comfortable up there. There's a lot of pace to her outside.
There certainly is. And let's go through this field from the rail up, beginning with that horse that's shown far behind the speeds on the pace projector, the number 1, Flat Out Time. And Mike, she did go gate to wire in her debut, but that was against much weaker company out in the Midwest. Since then, she's changed barns. She was pretty disappointing when she tried an allowance race at Churchill Downs back on Kentucky Derby weekend. Came off a layoff last time against much weaker company at Delaware. She was able to close from last to first, but last to first in a 4-horse field where she wasn't beating a whole lot. And I know it got an 82 buyer. That's a number I have a little trouble buying when I take a look at who was in that field.
Me too. I just listen. Ultimately, I just don't like her races, and I thought she was really, really hard to make a case for in here. We'll see. Maybe that number she got last time will turn out to be legitimate, and she'll move forward again in this race, and she'll fall into the right kind of trip. All those kinds of things. I just couldn't bet the race that way.
The number 2, Rojo Rita, we talked about, has a ton of early speed, and she's shown it on both dirt and turf. She switched over to the grass in her last couple of starts, has had to settle for second each time, but I think she ran well in both of those races, Mike, as things kind of fell apart 2 back. And then last time out, she was just facing a really tough field. The winner, Maytown, came back to win a stakes at Ellis Park in her next race. The 4th place finisher, Troubleshooting, also came back to win a stakes in his next start. That was a race against the males, and Rojo Rita held on well for second in there. Now they're going back to the dirt. I just wonder how much stamina she really has, Mike, and if she can withstand pressure that she's likely to get in this race.
That's my main issue with her too. She's really fast, and I respect her in that regard. But man, does she have trouble finishing her races on both surfaces? Even the any limit 3-star spec. The last time she was on dirt, David. I think if you just look at the running line, you would think that she was engaged in some kind of duel throughout the race there and wound up getting tired. It's not really what happened. She had control of that pace up the backstretch. They finally challenged her around the turn. And I don't know. I just thought she was kind of disappointed in that race too. I like her as a horse. I don't like her in this race.
The number 3, Delightful Claire, has all the upside coming into this race off her recent maiden win in the 2nd start of her career. We'll take a look at the stretch run of this race. Mike, this was a horse that had a lot of hype coming into her debut. She got bet down to 8-5 that day, went favored at Saratoga for her 2nd start, even though she was stepping up against a much tougher group of maidens. And she absolutely destroyed this group as she just traveled easily outside of, I think, the other horse that took money in this race on the front end. That gray horse just flicks her away at the top of the stretch and opens up to win going away at the end by nearly 10 lengths. 95 Beyer got a huge time form US number if you look at those speed figures. I mean, she has a lot of talent. And interestingly, she's got a very similar profile to a horse named Too Sharp, who also broke her maiden last summer, came right back in the Prioress, did get bet down to odds on, lost at a short price to Brightwork, but has proven to be a nice horse, and Delightful Claire looking to follow in those footsteps and maybe go one better.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like, listen, maybe the same thing will happen here, but it does kind of feel like Delightful Claire anyway. She's not facing anybody as good as Brightwork, or at least as good as Brightwork was at that time. We'll see. I don't know. She's not really my kind of horse. And I remember watching that debut, realizing how much money she took, and kind of feel like she was a little disappointing there. I didn't really see a big excuse for her. She got a little grindy at the end of that race and couldn't quite get up, but it was still okay. And obviously she just sort of ran the race they were sort of expecting her to last time. That was really impressive, and it was fast, and she lands in a good spot here, David. I had a tough time going against her.
She is the younger half-sister to Crazy Mason, who was recently third in the Grade 1 4-go last year. Completely opposite running style to that horse, though. The number 4, Stone Smuggler, is going to be coming back off a long layoff in a tough spot, though I don't think this race came up as tough as it maybe could have for its Grade 3 designation, Mike. And this is a horse that's been training at Saratoga all summer, and they've been looking for the right kind of spot. I think she was entered MTO a couple times, was scratched out of an allowance race earlier in the meet. They'll land here, but she did show some promise last year. We'll take a look at the most recent of her races from last December when she won a New York Stallion Series race, the lucrative $500,000 one, which makes her one of the leading money earners in this field. And I thought she ran well in this race. The pace kind of fell apart. She kicks on at the end, is able to hold off the closers and go away from them in the late stages. If she can move forward from age 2 to age 3, she could get on par with these fillies.
I agree. I really liked this win too. I mean, it's not only all the things that you say about her, but she just sat wide early in this race before she took over. I thought it was a really good performance. Her only losses last year were both to With the Angels, who at that time anyway, I don't know what happened to her, but she was unbeatable as a 2-year-old for Linda Rice. I don't know. I don't know if this is the right spot for her off the layoff, but I like all of her races.
The number 5, Long Neck Paula, is a horse that showed some talent during her 2-year-old season, was a little bit in and out, somewhat inconsistent, especially towards the early part of this year. But they got back into the right kind of spot last time, going the 6-furlong distance in the Jersey Girl. We'll take a look at the stretchment of that race because she almost gets the job done. She's battling with 2 other horses through the stretch of this race. Ultimately, it's Indy Bay between rivals that outgames Long Neck Paula on the rail as they come onto the wire. Beauty Reigns also closing well for third in here. I think all 3 of these horses have talent, and you will note, while Indy Bay, the winner, did come back to disappoint at her next start, after that she did return to earn a Grade 2 victory in the Charlestown Oaks just last Friday. So the form lines from this race are just fine. If she can repeat the 91 Beyer, Mike, and if maybe the horse coming out of the maiden when Delightful Claire steps back a little bit, makes her the one to beat.
I agree. And I do think it's an advantage for her that she had so much experience and the other horse does not. And so maybe that'll be all it takes for, I'll be honest, David, I hear exactly what you're saying about the horses that she ran against in the Jersey Girl last time. I was kind of disappointed that she didn't win there. I don't think she had any excuse at all. She was only second best in that race, but maybe just the fact that Indy Bay beat her, you're not supposed to be too hard on her for it. I'm a fan of hers. I've liked her right from the start. And I feel like even though she wasn't running fast races sort of as a 2-year-old and then into the early part of this year, I didn't think that really mattered. I thought all of her races were good, and she finally broke through with a faster race last time. She's easy to make a case for in here. I just kind of didn't want to take her because I kind of feel like she should have won last time.
I will say she was drawn inside of some other speed in that race. She found herself on the lead. I don't know if she's a horse that needs to be in front to have her best chance, and she is drawn outside of some of her key pace rivals here, so we'll see what kind of tactics they decide to use. The number 6, Praying, is another horse with plenty of early speed who is drawn outside of Long Neck Paula, and Mike, she's pretty quick out of the starting gate. So, I mean, we mentioned Rojo Rita maybe being the quickest of the quick early. If Praying outbreaks the field and tries to come over, maybe she's one that finds herself in front. We'll see how far that ultimately gets her because she's a horse that showed talent during her 2-year-old season, came back off a layoff this year, didn't love that loss at Oaklawn Park. And last time, I know it says she broke through the starting gate, so maybe that messed her up in the head. But I mean, after that, she just didn't do any running during the race.
Yeah, she did. Her first 2 starts so far this year, they're not great. That's for sure. Listen, we were talking about Stone Smuggler, though, looking to build off of really solid 2-year-old figures. This filly ran a 78 and a 79 as a 2-year-old. And by the way, one of the 78 that she ran really well in that race, the Myrtlewood, where it took Echo Sound, a really nice horse, to run her down at the end of that race. That was a really good performance. She hasn't been quite as good since then, but there are things to like about this filly. I spent a long time trying to talk myself into her as a top pick in here, David, and I probably would have done that if there wasn't so much speed to her inside, because I kind of do feel like she's best when she's on the lead.
I felt the exact same way. The pace scenario just makes it tough for her to work out the right trip in
Yeah.
here. We'll see how that ultimately plays out. Let's go to picks for this grade 3 Prioress, Mike. And I don't think either one of us is getting too creative in here. I know you've liked Long Neck Paula in the past. I went to her in this race. I just thought she was the trustworthy option with that proven stakes form. I know she's been a little inconsistent, but I just wanted her over the horse that was going to take a lot of money coming off a maiden win. But I hear you. Delightful Claire, she looked good last time.
Yeah, I can't argue with going to Long Neck Paul in here. I chalked it out here. I don't love this horse. It's not the kind of horse I usually pick, but I looked at this race for way too long, wanted to pick the 6 Praying, and ultimately just couldn't quite get there. I put her second. I will say this, if I do bet the race, I'll be trying to make money with the 6 in here, and maybe on top it in some exactas.
Yeah, I considered upgrading the number 4 Stone Smuggler, who we both agree has some upside. Just tough spot for a horse to come off a layoff. So Mike and I are going to chalk it out a little bit in this Prioress 5-3-4-2 for me and 3-6-4-5 for Mike in this 7th race at Saratoga on Saturday. Good luck if you're playing the races this weekend.